Hello, my lovelies. My name is Lecka, and welcome to Life Lessons with Lecka, episode 2. So, today I wanted to talk about depression and seasonal affectiveness disorder because those are two things that I have and have been struggling with for most of my entire life. So, I've seen that when I posted my song cover of Falling to Pieces, and was talking about depression just as a kind of cursory opener because singing that song helped me at that time, that a lot of people didn't really understand what depression was. All the comments were encouraging, but there was a lot of misinformation of like, oh, just let your depression go, get over it, you'll be fine, and things like that. So it's not as simple as that. Let's first talk about depression. So, depression is a mental illness that affects somebody for years. It is not a period of sadness, like if your dog dies, that would be sad. You would be upset about that. Depression is a mental illness where your motivation, your energy, and your joy are slowly drained and disturbed pretty much every single day. So, for example, you can still function perfectly fine. It's not like you are not going to be able to move or do anything. Sometimes your depression can be so bad that you have absolutely no energy, absolutely no motivation, and you can't get out of bed. But that doesn't happen all the time, every single day. A lot of people who have depression, myself included, can still function as a member of society because we have to. But when we're by ourselves and we're behind closed doors, then it really sinks in of being left with our own thoughts, and the depression really heightens everything that you hate about yourself and everything that is negative about yourself, and it brings you down and it puts you in a rut that is just terrible. And you can still smile, you can still laugh, you can still make jokes, you can still hang out with your friends, you can still do all those things, and then at the end of the day, you can still go home and be depressed. It is not sadness. It is not something that you can just let go. It is something that you have to fight and struggle against if you have depression every single day. And it is extremely difficult. Seasonal affectiveness disorder is something that a lot of people up here in Alaska develop, and I developed it because I came up to Alaska. And it is a mental illness that happens when you don't have very much contact with the sun, and the winters here are very long and very dark, and so the sun isn't out very much. You lose vitamin D, but it's not just a vitamin D deficiency. Seasonal affectiveness disorder is when you have a worse feeling of depression or sadness or sorrow or lack of energy and motivation because it is dark or because it is gloomy. And for some people, they have seasonal affectiveness disorder and they just have it mildly. So if they take some vitamin D supplements and they use a happy light, then they're pretty much good. They can get through the winter and they're fine. And they go out of and about their lives and act perfectly normal, and they don't have depression. They just have seasonal affectiveness disorder because they're up here in Alaska without much sun. And then you have people like me who are very affected by S.A.D. And S.A.D is the acronym I'm going to use for seasonal affectiveness disorder, because I get very sad and my moods correlate directly with what the weather is like outside. So if it's really sunny and nice, I might still have a really hard time with my depression, but it's going to be less likely than if it's a dark day, than if it's raining, than if it's super gloomy, than if it's cold and foggy and miserable and gloomy outside. If it is any of those other options, I have a very hard time functioning and getting and pushing through my day because my seasonal affectiveness disorder heightens my depression and makes it worse. So I have those factors, those two factors working together against me, and it's really difficult. I had a happy light and I used it, but I tripped over the cord and broke it. I have another one that's coming in the mail, and it has no cord. It's cordless. It's batteries, so I can't be clumsy and trip over it and break it. So I'm going to be getting one of those, and that helps. And I go to therapy, and I take vitamin D supplements, and all, pills and all these other things. So I'm have ways that I'm using to treat and to cope with it, but all those things are stuff you can implement into your life, but a really big help for people who have depression are friends and company. With me and what I've gone through, I really like having other people to talk with. I like having friends. I like being able to laugh and talk with you guys. I love interacting with you. I don't just interact in the comments and go to streams and stuff just because. I go there because I like you guys and I want to talk with you and I want to spend time with you and I enjoy your company. If I didn't like you and I didn't enjoy your company, then I wouldn't talk to you and I wouldn't be in your presence as much as possible. So a lot of people do understand that, but some people still don't get that I interact with my community so hyperactively, not just because I'm trying to get views, I'm trying to get subscribers, but because I care about all of you and I want to be all of your friends. I want to talk with all of you and form meaningful relationships that are going to better all of us and make our community stronger and make our days better and easier. Because I know I'm not the only person who struggles with mental illnesses. I don't have any anxiety issues, but I know a lot of people have issues with anxiety in addition to or on top of other illnesses like bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, depression, manic depression, like all these other things. And it can be very lonely. You can feel really ostracized because you feel like nobody else understands you. But they do. There are so many of us who struggle and have these problems, but they don't get talked about enough. They don't get enough recognition, and people just think, you'll get over it. But it's not that easy. It is a trap in your mind that you can't get away from because it's your head. I was talking to Clumsy the other day, and he he put it best with this analogy. He told me that trying to run away from your problems, whether it's your anxiety, depression, whatever mental illness it is you may be struggling with, is like trying to run away from a serial killer, flying to Paris, London, or wherever, and then texting your killer, hey, I'm staying at the Hilton Hotel on the 32nd floor in room 3. Don't find me. And obviously, they're going to come after you because you just told them where you were. And they're going to come after you no matter where you run to in the world. They're going to come after you. They're going to find you because you're telling them where you are. You can't run away from them because it is you. You are fighting against your own mind. You can't not have discussions with your own thoughts. You can't not let your mental illness know what you're thinking because it's inside of your head. So it's really difficult because they know exactly what you're thinking. And so when you're fighting against it, it just becomes this really weird cycle. And that was a very good visualization of that because that's pretty much true. With my depression, I personify it as a demon. And it's this evil, dark girl that's like an image of me, pretty much reflected. But she's black and demon-y and is trying to drag me down. So whenever I'm, having words with her and trying to get her out of my life, I know that I can't completely get rid of her, but what I can do is try my hardest to lock her in a cage, throw her into the crevice she's trying to claw me into, and see if I can keep her locked away down there and as far away from my regular life as much as possible. And in the summertime, when it's sunny and nice, it's a lot easier to do that because I don't have hardly any days where my depression gets me down. But when it's winter, or fall becoming winter like it is right now, her cage opens and she starts to creep back out of the crevice. And especially this year, for whatever reason, she didn't just open the cage and creep out of the crevice, she frickin' flew out of the hole that she was in and landed on top of me and is trying to drag me down already, and I'm trying to claw my way away from her. She came at me full force, and I have not felt this level of struggle in a very long time. The worst I ever had to deal with was when I was in high school. That was when my depression was at its worst because it was completely untreated at one point. I did not have any therapy. I didn't have any meds. I didn't have anybody I talked to because I just kept to myself, and I still kind of keep to myself now, but I do have people that I kind of open up to, and friends and family make it a lot easier. Even if I don't completely open up to people, it's still nice just to have company around. So, when I was in high school, I was very, very, very self deprecating. And my depression was extremely bad because I was letting her dictate how I viewed myself. And everything that she was telling me, all these horrible lies that she was feeding me, like, you are worthless, you are insignificant, nothing you do matters, everything that you do is a failure, you're ugly, you suck, you're horrible, and nobody loves you, you're gonna be lonely forever, you know, you should have never been born. All these things were being said to me over and over and over again. And eventually, if you keep hearing those voices say that to you every single day, you start to believe it because that's all you hear. Even if you try and fight it at first, eventually it wears you down. And I had been fighting this not just since high school. I have had signs of depression since I was in elementary school. I remember the earliest time that I kind of realized that I was sad sometimes for no reason, which I know now is depression, was when I was in, I think, fourth grade. And I was talking with a counselor or somebody, and we had to draw with colored pencils a human picture, like a silhouette of a person, and color in what emotions we thought were in our bodies and how much. And red was anger, blue was sadness, and yellow was happiness, you know, stuff like that. And I remember that I had, like, a hand that I drew yellow, and I drew a lot of it blue. And then I drew some of it red, but I really don't get angry very much. And then there were a couple other emotions, I think, but it was mostly blue with just a little bit of yellow. And when I brought it home to my mom and I showed her, she was like, "No, Alexa, that's not true. You're happy all the time." And then she took a yellow colored pencil and she outlined the whole person in yellow and was like, "You're always happy. You have a happiness about you all the time. You are not sad." And so she was my mom and she told me I'm not sad, so I guess the way I'm feeling is wrong, and I'm actually happy all the time. And for the most part, I am very nice. I'm very welcoming. I'm very happy. I've always been that way since I was a baby. And that's not wrong, but for her to not see that I was also very sad and had these moments where I was sad for no reason and didn't understand why was something that she, you know, just thought that maybe I was not fully understanding or explaining, and I was just drawing that in because I was sad that day or something along those lines. But I've been feeling that way since I was a kid. And when I was in middle school, I had my first breakup at the beginning of 8th grade. I was with my first boyfriend for like over a year, and then he cheated on me and broke up with me. And when that happened, that totally broke my heart, and it ruined my world at the time. And it really spiraled me down, and that's what started my depression. Not started it, but it's what started the really heavy struggle that I've had of depression. So 8th grade, I was 13 years old. So I was 13. That was 9 years ago. And it was really hard. Of course, because it was just after a breakup, my mom and everybody else was just like, "Oh, you know, you're sad, you just broke up, you have a broken heart, you'll be fine." And yeah, I did have a broken heart. I did have all of those things. But it was also more than that. But of course, you know, nobody understood that, and I didn't really understand it either, because I'd been told my whole life, you're fine, And it was only when I kept fighting these feelings and I'm like, you got cheated on because you're ugly. You got cheated on because you suck. You got cheated on because of XYZ. Whatever it is, it was my fault in my head, even though he was the one that cheated on me and it was his fault. But it was that cycle that was starting to go, and I would have a really hard time wanting to do things. I would just have a struggle to get up and do things, especially at night. Night was so hard for me because, again, my seasonal affectiveness disorder, I didn't even know I had that, but when night comes, it's very hard for me because it's dark. And it's just a natural process, day and night, but it still affects me. And nights would always be the hardest, and I would be fine throughout the day, and then at night, it would start to get me down. And now I know why, but back then, I had no idea. So it was really, really hard because I felt this way and nobody understood me. Absolutely nobody understood what I was going through. And so I would keep to myself because when I would try and open up and explain, nobody would really take me seriously. So fast forward a few years, and now we are in high school. And I have gone through another breakup, and I've gone through another relationship, and I feel just terrible about myself. I have gotten to the point with my depression that I felt so insignificant as a person that I felt like I didn't deserve to have any of the things I did, including my own life. And I would think about every single day how to kill myself. Every single day, I would think about what would the best way be for me to die that is the most convenient for everybody else. Because I felt like such an inconvenience in everybody's life that even my death, even my suicide that I was thinking about almost every single day, I wanted to make convenient for everybody else because I didn't want to shoot myself because then I get blood on the carpet and my mom would have to pay to get the blood removed. So that would be a dumb idea of me. And I can't drown myself because then my body would be in the tub in the bathroom and then they'd have to find a way to get my body out of the bathroom, and that wouldn't be convenient for them. They'd have to move my body around. So I was thinking of all these different ways, and every way was not convenient enough. And that was so hard for me because when you are thinking about how much you are horrible and shouldn't be alive and are thinking of ways to kill yourself every single day, it really makes it hard to function as a person and pretend to be happy and pretend to go on about your day and that everything is fine and not talk to people about it and just go through the motions and act like you do in regular daily life. It becomes really difficult. And on top of that, I was also just so sad, and I would fight with the demon in my head so much that I would scream at her, at myself pretty much, silently scream. I would hurt myself to try and hurt her. I would scratch my legs in the shower and make myself have really dark marks because I'm scratching the hell out of my legs and making myself bleed. But it was her just laughing at me, and I was only hurting myself, so I didn't do that for very long. But nothing I did made a difference, and it didn't affect her. In fact, it made her stronger because I was giving her ammunition to fight me. I was giving her ammunition to be like, ha, look at that, you are weak, you are crying and breaking down, you are doing this. But at the time, I didn't know how to do any better. I didn't know how to fight her and how to push back because I was just barely hanging on. I wasn't pushing back. I was just trying not to get sucked in at this point. There was no driving force of pushing her back and getting my depression under control. She was definitely winning the fight, and I was just trying not to get pushed off the edge. So, the tipping point for me finally getting therapy, because during all of this, during the years that I've been dealing with this silently, I have told my parents that I wanted to see a therapist. I've told my mom and my dad and uh, my family pretty much, because my mom and dad were my only family, and my brother too, that I thought I had depression and I wanted to see a doctor. And my parents didn't believe me. They thought I was so happy all the time and so nice to everybody that I'm just going through a hard time. It's puberty. You're growing up. You're going through hormone changes. You'll get over it. It'll be fine. It'll be a phase. It'll pass. It'll be a phase is something I heard a lot. So they didn't understand or take me seriously. I would tell my mom I was sad for no reason. I would tell her I was sad, and she'd ask why, and I wouldn't have a reason because there is no reason. Depression is something that comes after you and it follows you every single day. It's not because your dog died. It's not because something happened to you because you got bullied at school. It's because you just exist. It's just there every day. So she just didn't understand. They didn't understand it. And the tipping point, like I was saying, was while I was sad and trying to figure out all these things, I would try and figure out ways to make myself pass out because I didn't want to be awake. I didn't want to be conscious. I didn't want to be awake for her to yell at me because I hated listening to her so much that I thought if I could just pass out, I wouldn't have to deal with it because I wouldn't be awake to hear her tear me down. And I would try and drink like a whole bottle of NyQuil and make myself pass out. It didn't work. I would try and overdose on pills, and it never worked. I tried to drink a lot of alcohol, but it tasted absolutely god awful, and I was like, I'm not touching that, so I put it back. And none of that worked, so the only solution I came up with was to try and make myself so tired and fed up and just exhausted that I would pass out, because I've tried all these different things and none of them were working. So what I would usually do was go into my closet. I would go into the very corner of the closet. I would curl up in a ball, and I would put my headphones in from my iPod, and I would listen to music. And I would cry to the lyrics of whatever songs were going on. And music was a good kind of an outlet. It was kind of a help and an escape because some of the songs really resonated with me and made it easier for me to cope with my emotions. But obviously it wasn't a cure-all. Music helps, but it's not the solution. So I would cry in the dark, in a ball, in my closet. And usually I would sob silently because I didn't want anybody to hear me, because I'm just trying to cry and break down and scream silently so that I can get so tired I just pass out. And my mom, one day, because I did this pretty often, I guess I didn't scream silently or I didn't sob quietly enough, and she heard a sob or whatever it was and came into my room. And she was looking for me. She's like, Alexa, and I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want her to find me. And she opened my closet and she found me, and she's like, why are you sitting in the dark in a ball in the corner of your closet, Alexa? And I was like, because I'm sad. I want to be alone. And she's like, that's not normal. That's not okay. And it was at that moment, I think she finally realized that it wasn't just a regular sadness that I was dealing with. It wasn't just a temporary emotion like happiness, sadness, anger, all those are. It was something more than that. And when I asked her again later to see a therapist, she seriously looked into it. And my first therapist was absolutely awful and sucked and was terrible and made me not want to see therapists again. But then I went to a different one, and she was amazing and she helped me a lot. So I'm glad that I went to another one because my first one sucked. But I didn't know. I was just happy to go to a therapist. I didn't realize later that she was absolutely awful. But I got to go see one, and it was, with my family's help. And they don't understand because no one else in my family has depression. No one else in my family has seasonal affectiveness disorder. It's just me. So it makes it really difficult. And it took a lot of time, but I was at my lowest in high school. Even when I was seeing my therapists, it was pretty difficult because I was still trying to fight against her. And even though I had people to talk to, and I had a psychologist, the second one that actually helped me, to kind of help me through stuff and understand myself better, I was still fighting with her on a daily basis. I was still crying every night. I was still trying to make myself realize that I was worth living for and that I wasn't awful. But my self-confidence was so low, was so non-existent, that it was a very, very long and hard fight. I, as an adult now, maybe like 3 years ago, have finally gotten to a point where my self-confidence is much, much, much better. I am happy with myself. I love the way I look. I love my body. And I am confident in the strength of the human being that I am. But it took years and years to get to that point. And I was a shell of a person for like 6 years. So it was a very long time before any of those breakthroughs happened. But you know what? Even though I was struggling every single day, even though it was extremely hard for me and nobody understood me for the longest time, I made it through. I survived. I was able to stand my ground long enough that I didn't kill myself, that I didn't listen to her and end my life, and that eventually I was able to push back. I was no longer just trying to stay away from the precipice that she was trying to push me over. I was able to knock her down and get her locked up in a cage and then throw that cage over the precipice she was trying to throw me into. And I was really good for a while. When I was 18 and 19, 20, like I had pretty good years. I would go through the winters and I would still have depression that I deal with a little bit, but my depression wouldn't be nearly as strong as I had felt in the past. It wasn't nearly the strength of wanting to die and thinking that I shouldn't exist and that what I have I don't deserve. It wasn't any of those feelings, and it was much more manageable. But recently, my depression has felt very similarly to the way it felt when I was in high school. And that scares me because I know and I remember how hard it was for me when I was in high school. And even though I have all the knowledge, even though I have a way better understanding of myself, I have better confidence, I'm a stronger person than I was before, and I have so many friends and so much support, it's still scary because I know what she could do if I ever let her. And I'm not going to give up. No matter what she does, because I have so much love and support from all of you guys, from my family, from all the skills and tools that I have to help better myself every single day, I'm going to continue to fight back. When I was in high school, I didn't think I was strong. I thought I was weak. I thought I sucked. I thought I was so horrible as a person. And even though I thought all of that about myself, my actions showed who I really was. And even if I didn't see it, because my demon was screaming over the action so that I wouldn't take notice and realize that I was strong, I didn't give up. I was actually a very strong person, even back then when I was struggling the most, because I would fight her. I would cry because I was yelling at her in my head. I would write out in my journal, and I would have one side that I was talking, and the other side I would write out as her talking. And I would get into arguments with her and fight back and just yell at her, and I wouldn't just go along with it all the time. And because I kept fighting back, that showed that I didn't want to give up. There was always a part of me, there was always that small part of me that wanted to keep going, that wanted to live, that was trying to tell me that I was worth it and that I'm beautiful and that I am strong and that I can overcome it. But it was so small and it was so quiet that my demon, who was super loud and vocal, just, overthrew her most of the time. But she was there. She was there. That little voice was still there. And it was enough to keep me alive. It was enough to give me the will to live that I needed to push through and not end my life. And I am so glad that I didn't do that, because I have had so many great things happen to me that never would have happened, obviously, if I wasn't here. And I have helped a lot of people, and I wouldn't have been able to help them if I wasn't here. All I've ever wanted to do with my life is help other people. Even when I was a kid, the only thing I ever wanted to do when I grew up was do something that helped others. That's why originally I wanted to be a teacher, because I wanted to help kids. I wanted to help special needs because they got overlooked a lot and they would get made fun of, and I wanted to help them. I was always the kid that gravitated towards the people who got bullied, towards the people who were outcasts, who were weird, who were branded as like bad and loners, and I would go to them and be their friend because nobody else would, and I thought that was the worst thing ever. I still do. So I was always, and still am, that person who goes to those who don't have friends, and I become their friend, because nobody deserves to be lonely. Nobody should have to feel like they don't have a freaking friend or person they can talk to in the world. And I've always been that way, even since I was in elementary school. And I still feel that way as an adult. And that's a huge reason why I started YouTube, but that's a completely different video topic. But for my depression topic here, having friends and helping them through things did make me feel better, because I was being able to kind of follow my dream of helping other people. And that's all I want to do with my life. That's still all I want to do with my life, is help others. And if I can do that, then my life is worth living. So I'm very, very happy with the way that my life is. And even though I still struggle and having a particularly hard time this year, I'm still going to fight through. And if I could get through all of the hate, all of the fog, all of the freaking tearing down that my demon was doing to me when I was trying to fight back against her for the longest time without help, in pretty much all of high school and middle school as well, then I know you guys can too. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what grade you're in. I don't care what gender you are, what your sexuality is, what your religion is. I don't care about your race. I don't care about anything other than the fact that you are awesome. You are perfect the way you are. You are enough, and you are strong, and you can get through anything, even if you don't think you can. You are stronger than you believe, and you are smarter than you think, and you can get through it. I believe in you. You can do it. I will be here for you. I know what it feels like to want to die. I know what it feels like to cry and not really have any reason to, other than the fact that you are tearing yourself down. I know what it's like to lay at the bottom of a shower after it's gone cold for about an hour, crying and shivering and breaking down. I know what it feels like to be absolutely worthless and feel insignificant to everybody else in the world. And I know that those can be overcome. And I know that you can do it too. If I can do it, you can do it. And you're not alone. I will be here for you. We will be here for you. We have a wonderful community that will be here for you. I will post links in the description below also to free and confidential sites that you can use if you are having a really hard time. There's suicide hotlines, there's depression chat groups, there are so many resources that you can utilize that you don't have to go to your parents about if you're having a really hard time, if that's not even an option. If you don't have people IRL, there are resources that are available to you. And I just want you to know that you are loved, you are cared about, and you do mean something to the world. You mean something to me. And I would hate to see you go. So please keep going. I believe in you. And I know there's a part of you that still wants to keep going. And you just have to be able to hear them through the loudest of shrieks from your own demons that you face. But they're there. And we're here to try and give that voice a megaphone. So if you need us, use us. I know you can do it. But that's really all I have for this episode on depression and seasonal affectiveness disorder and what they are. And if you liked this episode, then please remember to drop a like down below, and I will be definitely talking about more subjects in the future. I have a long list of stuff I would like to talk about, but if you guys want something specific, then feel free to write them down in the comments below, and if it's a really cool topic or you have a question specifically for me, ask away. I don't mind talking about anything with you guys. I am very open, so just ask. But without taking up any more of y'all's time, I will go ahead and let you beautiful people go. Goodbye, my lovelies. I love all of you. And remember, you are enough. You are strong. You are smart. And you can get through it.